Hi, everybody. It's Jean Humbrecht with Humbrecht Law, criminal and traffic defense attorney in Manassas, Virginia. Welcome to my semi-weekly local business spotlight. I have two very special guests today, Melanie Stull and Avery Harper from Phoenix Project in Front Royal. For those of you who don't know, Phoenix Project is the community's response to domestic and sexual violence, and they serve clients in Front Royal and Warren County. So at this point, I'm going to turn it over to Avery, who is the director of Phoenix Project, to tell us a little bit more about the organization. And then if you guys have any questions, type them in the chats and I will get them answered while I have my guests here. So Avery, turning it over to you.
Great. Thank you so much, Jean, for giving us the opportunity to talk about our beloved agency today. We really appreciate it. It's very special to us because we have recently celebrated our 10-year anniversary of serving clients in Warren County and Front Royal. And we are coming up on October, which, as many people know, is Domestic Violence Awareness Month. And so the question is, well, what do we do? What does it mean when we say that we serve survivors of intimate partner violence, which is domestic violence, sexual assault, and the crime of stalking? So what do? Well, we provide both crisis services and supportive services. So an example of crisis services would be our 24/7 hotline. So if someone in our locality is experiencing domestic or sexual violence and is not safe, they can reach out to our agency in the moment through that hotline, and we can provide crisis intervention services to see what we need to do within the next 24 to 48 hours to get this person to safety. So that might look like emergency transportation to a shelter, to a safe friend or family member, to a hotel. We do provide a very, very short-term sheltering stays locally here in hotels for those that, again, are not safe. We can provide medical accompaniment. So if a survivor is interested in receiving those services, they take place up at Winchester Medical. We can be there walking alongside that survivor. We can provide safety planning. We can provide, on a short-term basis, food, clothing, hygiene items. Oftentimes when a person is experiencing this type of violence, the perpetrator of violence will break that person's cell phone to limit their ability to get to help. We can oftentimes provide that client with a phone that they can use to contact friends and family for help, sometimes security cameras. And then within that supportive services category, there's some things that we can offer like support groups, ongoing safety planning, general information and education about intimate partner violence, domestic violence, sexual assault, coercive control. These are pretty strong words. They are very broad words. And it's not, there's a lot of psychoeducation information that's out there to help a person understand what they might be experiencing and going through. And very importantly, in knowing that they are not alone. There's things out there like the address confidentiality program. So if someone, if it is unsafe for that client to receive mail or to have their mail delivered to wherever it is that they're staying, there's actually a whole program out there through the Commonwealth Attorney's Office that we can link them to help them get their mail safely. We also participate in a lot of community outreach. So that's sitting on programs and boards, things like the Sexual Assault Response Team meeting, community best practices. And we are always excited and interested in attending community members, local groups, community groups to speak about what we do as an agency, the services we provide, and really dig into what does that coercive control look like for the survivor that may be experiencing it. And I just talked a lot, so feel free to.
Well, I wish that I had a pen. If you'll excuse me for 1 minute, I'm grabbing a pen because there were so many things I wanted to jot down and ask questions about.
Sure.
Sorry, guys.
No,
But a couple of things. I'm going to ask these questions as I think of them. So Melanie or Avery, whoever wants to respond, can you explain what coercive control is? And then also you had mentioned providing cell phones to survivors or people
Yeah.
going through problems, to say the least. Is that for them to have at their home when they haven't actually left the home, so that they have a phone that their partner doesn't know about? So first we can start with the coercive control.
Yeah, got it. And that's a great question to start with. So coercive control is basically a pattern of behavior. So we're looking at that pattern, that word is bold and capitalized. Pattern of behavior an abuser or perpetrator uses to dominate their partner and limit that person's freedom. So that can look like, tactics of coercive control can look like isolating their partners, gaslighting, monitoring. It's very subtle. It could also look like some of those pieces that we think about when we think about what the media teaches us domestic violence looks like. So we definitely have the physical violence pieces, but it's so much more than that. It's all of these different behavioral patterns that are rolled in together to use against the survivor, also known as the target, because this is a very targeted pattern of behavior. There is something that we use, it's a model called the power and control wheel, because what the science tells us is that domestic violence, intimate partner violence is a choice, and it is about maintaining power and control over that person. So it can look like some of these different tactics, like the gaslighting, verbal abuse, psychological, mental, interesting tactics that came through while we were at the height of the COVID-19 pandemic. And certainly the physical violence is a piece of all that. Monitoring. So like, Facebook stalking, things like that, getting into a person's accounts, reading their emails, reading their text messages, all of that. And then let me answer your question about the phones next. So one of the things that you mentioned was use of phones before, during, and after a person is leaving. So one thing is really important to note is that our services are free, confidential, and open to anyone living in Front Royal, Warren County. You do not have to leave or be thinking of leaving that situation in order to receive services with us. We can do safety planning around how to stay safer, and I'm using that very, very loosely, because we know you are in an unsafe situation when we have those power and control dynamics at play, okay? And those cell phones, essentially if a survivor contacts our agency and they are in need of that cell phone, whether it's because they are still there thinking about leaving or have already left, we'll screen you in on that. If we have them available, we'll do our best to provide the survivor with that. It is important to note that we are grant funded, so we do receive the majority of our funding through 2 funding streams, and all of our services are contingent upon that grant funding. So sometimes we have these things in place for our survivors. Sometimes we don't. And you know what? When we don't, it makes us mad too.
Mm-hmm. Okay, I have a lot of questions. Some of these I know the answer to, but just for the benefit of everybody watching. And I think some of us might have a misinterpretation or not understand the term gaslighting. So can you explain what that means?
Yeah.
This is one of the many tactics that you said that, and I don't want to get the terms wrong, but the terms are abuser and survivor. Is that, or is those the terms we're using?
Yeah, for the most part, we tend to use abuser and perpetrator of violence kind of interchangeably.
Okay.
Survivor is certainly a more empowering word to use. So sometimes we use survivor, sometimes we use victim. Courts use the word victim. Sometimes we use client. And your question was about trying to understand gaslighting. Yeah. Again, another great question. And some of these things are actually really hard to define, especially because I don't have that definition right in front of me. But much like coercive control, it is how that abuser, it's how that perpetrator gets into the minds and the hearts of our survivor and uses that in such a way that warps and twists the reality that the survivor is experiencing. And the term gaslighting came about, I believe it was a movie back in like the 1970s.
It was longer. It was older than that.
Is it?
Play.
Yeah, it's in black and white.
Thank you. And so it's my understanding that the woman was coming home in the evenings. The husband had been turning down the lights, the gas lights in the home, and denying the experience of the woman who was saying, oh gosh, it's awful dark and dim in here, isn't it? And because of the context of that intimate relationship, because we're talking about intimate relationships. So this is your partner. This is the person who is supposed to have your back. You know, you grow to trust them and to have that most trusted source in your brain saying, no, maybe you just have a headache today. Maybe you're unwell. Maybe you're a little crazy. You know, we hear that quite a bit. You know, you start to believe them. Which is
I want to ask you a question about that.
Yeah.
Because some of us know that we have had experience with people that have done that in our lives, whether it's intimate partners or others. And then maybe there are some of us who have not had that experience. And I think until you have had that experience, you don't understand that that somebody can actually like make you feel like you're crazy. I don't know where I'm going with this. I don't know if I had a question. But you know, is there another example? And thank you for talking about where the original term came from. But is there another example that you know people who have been through intimate partner violence like may have gone through like of this gaslighting? Like something basic?
Yeah.
Or well, I shouldn't say basic. Like a simple example.
Sure. So maybe it would be something like, gosh, I'm trying to think basic.
Melanie, you can chime in too if you have anything to add.
The examples of gaslighting that I'm familiar with, on some of it is like they're distracting you with compassion, they're minimizing or making fun of, they're discounting achievements, they have kids telling their parents something different as well. There's just a lot of things that they can do that makes you think you're crazy. They might withhold information and insist that they told you. You know, and that's happened a lot. Like they think that I've told you that, I told you that, you know, but they didn't.
The withholding information, that's a good one, Mel. That's a great example.
Shifting blame, you know, silently sabotaging them, you know.
Like deny, like if you're telling, like if I'm telling somebody, you know, well, I'm just trying to use a very basic example. You don't go attacking people, but like you did X, Y, and Z. Like, no, I didn't. You're crazy. I didn't do that. You're imagining things. That never happened. I never said that. Over and over and over again, to the point that you do start to think you're crazy.
Yeah.
Oh, I guess I knew what my question was from like 2 minutes ago. So if you have not experienced this, if a person has not experienced this, they might not understand how this behavior can actually start to change your mind, the survivor or victim, for example. So can we talk a little bit about that, like how that constant like gaslighting can actually make you feel like you're crazy, like because someone else might say, why do you even listen to it? That's not true.
Yeah, definitely, because we're looking at this as a pattern of behavior over time. And again, within that context of that intimate relationship, you just come to believe it. You truly come to believe that it is your fault, that maybe you did raise your voice just a little bit too much. And maybe the 10th time he says, you're the problem, you need to go to counseling.
Mm-hmm.
And then you start being the one to go to counseling, even though it's not your fault.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe you do start to believe it. So next thing you know, maybe you think, well, gosh, maybe I've been a little sad. Maybe I am depressed. And next thing you know, you're on medication for depression or any of those different
Mm-hmm.
things. I think the point of this too is that very often our survivors are in their relationship because there's something that's still keeping them in that relationship. And so they're trying very hard to maintain that relationship and to do their very, very best, especially if there are children involved and they're thinking that they need to remain in that relationship for the sake of that child. They're going to shoulder more of that responsibility. They're going to try to internalize those messages and try to solve that problem. But really, so they're internalizing this message, but really the focus should be on that abuser, and it should be on why is he being allowed within our society, if we're looking out larger, and then certainly within the context of that intimate relationship, why are those patterns able to constantly persist? Why does that keep happening? Why is it always on the shoulders of that survivor to figure this stuff out, to figure out how she's going to leave if she's going to leave, how she's going to stay safer if she's going to stay safer, how she's going to support that family? Why is it always her fault? And I got one more point if I'm not talking too much. So you had mentioned some terms earlier, using survivor and whatnot, using abuser, perpetrator. We know that this is a gendered crime. This affects females much more and in greater capacity than males. So we typically do use the female pronouns for survivor, male pronouns as perpetrator. And I'm always conscious of making the point that we know that there are male survivors out there. We know that there are female perpetrators of violence.
Mm-hmm.
So just wanted to make that point so we don't get any angry messages.
Oh.
Also just want to make the point along those lines too, is that we do feel that everybody deserves to live a life free from violence, and our services are free and open to all. So we're talking members of the LGBTQIA plus community, immigrant survivors, non-English speaking survivors. Basically, they just need to reside here in Front Royal, Warren County, and we can screen them in that way.
Mm-hmm. Got it. Okay. Well, before I go on, I do want to apologize. There is a dog snoring very loudly in the background, so just ignore that. But I did want to talk about a couple of other things. You had mentioned specifically actually, I want to get to Corey's comment first. Thank you, Corey, so much for watching. Corey is my best friend. Corey, I have something funny to tell you later about referring to you in a speech. But Corey does a lot of family law cases, and she obviously has dealt with people, I think both men and women, as we discussed, that have been the survivors of this abuse. She said that the victim is often afraid of the perpetrator obtaining custody or parenting time. So I guess that would go towards being afraid to leave or being financially dependent. Do we want to talk about that briefly?
Yeah, I don't know that we can do it briefly, but I'll try. I mean,
Well,
just
as briefly as possible. I think we're going to need to do this again because I I wanted to talk about the wine pool thing, but I think this is really important. So we'll definitely, you guys should come back on another time if we, because we're not
yeah,
going to
yeah, no, we'd love to. And honestly, I don't have a whole lot to add in addition to what Corey has already said. I mean, she is right, exactly what she said. And there's a whole bunch of nuances around that, and how the court process can sometimes go against our victims who are trying to receive justice through that court process. Yeah, that Corey said it beautifully.
Mhm. So in terms of, I actually want to ask a follow-up question about this. In terms of the victim being afraid of the perpetrator getting custody or parenting time, let's talk about women first as being the victim and afraid of the father getting parenting time. Um, why why would the mom be afraid of the dad not getting parenting time? Because I don't practice family law, but I think in the past the courts have erred more towards giving it to the mother, and I know that's changing. But if but why would there be a fear of that? Is it because they're afraid that let's say the perpetrator of the violence would lie, or like say they're going to take all the money so you can't get a lawyer, or what would be the fear there?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, all of that.
Oh,
Very often children are used as a tool in custody cases, in cases in which there is this dynamic of imbalance of power and control. Very often, and I'm being very general here, but very often the male has the power, the male has the financial resources, and it's not the male typically who's in a state of emotional distress. It's usually the male who can present themselves very beautifully and eloquently in situations in which courts and family law are involved, where you've got the female over here that's been dragged through the mud. Her emotions are running high. Her fear is running high. He
mhm.
is using whatever tactic he can against her. Maybe she's only working part time, only working. I mean, that's enough, but you know
Well,
what I'm
yeah.
saying.
Hmm.
Exactly. Maybe this came up during the pandemic. Maybe she was hesitant to get the kids vaccinated. And I know that's a whole can of worms, but he's twisting that around to
Mhm.
say something along the lines of, well, you don't care about our kids aren't going to be safe, you're refusing to get them medical treatment. It just escalates so hard and so fiercely. And
Hmm.
he will do and use whatever fear that she has in order to break her down as much as possible within that court process.
Hmm.
And honestly, typically a lot of the abusers aren't so great to their kids either. But
Yeah,
there's that manipulation, and then they make their mom, that's part of the gaslighting too, bringing the kids in, and, just a lot of things like that. But the kids, we have a few cases that it's not good that the other parent has any unsupervised visits with them. But I think we run into a lot of problem where a lot of our court systems and law enforcements do not have the trauma informed training that is needed to understand it all. Because we've had law officers say, I'd like to help you, but why'd you go back? It's like, no, you can't do that. But so I think a lot of lack of training, and we're working on that.
and we also hear a lot of things against the mom, like they're telling their 7-year-old, their 9-year-old, that mommy's just breaking up the family.
Mhm.
Daddy wants to be with the family, but mommy's not letting daddy come back. And so mom's also bearing the emotional burden of the cost of his abuse and how that's playing out with the relationship with her children too.
And might I just say, Sim, when we say, why don't they leave? For people that don't know, that is the most dangerous times. Homicides of domestic violence, intimate partner, it's usually because they're leaving or had gotten away or whatever it is. That is the most dangerous time, is leaving the abuser.
Yep.
Okay. Do they know that? Is that one of the victims? Is that, or the survivors? Is that why they're afraid to leave? Because they know the person's, well, gonna explode basically if they know their partner is leaving them.
I think oftentimes yes, sometimes no. And when we look at it from that scientific lens, understanding that this is all about that power and control. When that survivor is leaving or is in the process of leaving, they're taking back their autonomy. They're taking some of that power and control back. So that abuser very typically will escalate whatever the control is in order to keep them closer, in order to keep them exactly where they want them.
But can I ask you a question about that? Why does that perpetrator think, well, I don't know how to articulate this question. Why do they think that using the violence in any way, whether it's a hitting or something worse, why do they think that is going to get the person to stay?
Because it does. Because it does get them to stay.
Okay.
I
So,
mean,
but what is that person thinking as it's going on? Like, what is going on in that person's mind?
yeah.
Do we even know?
And remember too, so we have, so we're talking about the cycle of violence. We're talking about, yeah. So we're talking about so the explosion has happened, the violence has happened, right? Oftentimes after that, and I'm talking more about the physical violence, like the violence that we see on TV that leaves marks and bruises. Oftentimes after that, we see like a honeymoon phase with a
Love
perpetrator.
bombing.
Oh, love bombing. Yeah, you got it, Mel. I'm so sorry. Give me another chance. I'll never do this again. And if that person is trying to stay for whatever their reasons are, because there's still something in that relationship that they feel is of value, which is their right, they're allowed to do that, that it might be just enough to get them to stay a little bit longer. And say if we're talking some real bad cases, say if we're talking like strangulation, say we're talking about non-fatal strangulation, perpetrator does what he does to that victim. How terrifying is it to know that that intimate partner just brought you to the brink of death? What is he going to do next time? If you're, maybe next time you try to leave and you know that this is the result of you trying to leave, you almost lost your life. How much more power does that person have over you now?
And you probably have this statistics on this more than I do, but I have heard that the perpetrators who commit the strangulation against the victims, survivors, whatever you want to call them, the odds are much higher that that perpetrator is going to attempt to or kill that victim. Is that
Yes.
correct?
Yes. And can I say one more thing? I start getting pretty fired up about this, so I don't want to take too much. Poor Melody.
No, we're gonna do this again. I hope you guys want to come back because there's a lot more to talk about.
Yeah, definitely. And I'm just thinking like in something like strangulation. So say, and I'm not going to get into too many details. We're not trying to traumatize any of your listeners here, but say that
we're informing. We're not we're informing.
So say that survivor has just survived non-fatal strangulation. So something has gone around, in my mind, they've gone around the neck. So that survivor has now reached out to that perpetrator who's in front of them to try to free themselves. Who's going to have the marks on them? It's not going to be that survivor. It takes about 24 hours for any of those bruises to show. It's that perpetrator who's going to have fingernail, whatever scratches on them. So now law enforcement has been called. Law enforcement arrives. Law enforcement sees the perpetrator who's the one who's got these marks, right?
Mm-hmm.
They didn't just go through something traumatic. They're going to be able to articulate very well. You've got your survivor who's not really showing any marks. and is obviously non-coherent at this point,
Yeah.
what's that officer going to do? Well, you get someone with marks and someone with not. There's a lot of education. And let me tell you, we love our law enforcement here locally. We truly do. They're wonderful to our survivors. They're wonderful to our
Absolutely.
agency. But in that example, to your question, why would they continue to stay when this physical violence is happening? What if they're now the one who's arrested because of what just happened?
Oh,
Do you-
I didn't ask why would they stay. I think I was asking about once a strangulation has occurred, those case you're 6 times more likely or something
Yes.
like that to be
Mhm.
the victim of for that person to kill you or try to kill you, basically.
Correct.
Yeah,
And
you're
at
right.
a
I
firearm,
went off on a tangent.
No, you're fine.
and at a firearm in the home, it increases the lethality level exponentially. I think it's like 10 times higher when you have a firearm in the home
Hmm.
with an abuser.
Yeah, I can obviously see that. I want to ask one more question, and then I want to get to the wine pool because the wine pool is coming up soon. So I want to make sure we talk about that.
Thank you.
But briefly, Avery, I'm just joking. I know I want you guys to have all the opportunity, but you mentioned providing services to help the person remain safer in their home or in their situation. So we talked about the cell phones, but what else would those services be for a person that's not ready to leave or maybe will never leave, but to be safer where they are?
Yep. So it's all very much based on the individual and the individual's goals. Some things might look like if they can sense that the violence is going to escalate, maybe they can find a way to go out and go for a walk or invite a friend or family member over. Anything that they can do to de-escalate whatever they're feeling the situation might be. If they are thinking about or if they feel like they need to leave in the situation because of the escalation, it's working with them to make sure they have a to-go bag ready. It's making sure that they have any of the documents that they might need ready to go. And there's a lot more with that. But
Mhm.
Mm-hmm.
yeah,
Now, you mentioned, and I don't want to go down this road, but you mentioned, psychological, mental, financial abuse. If there's a situation where a person, like let's say they're completely dependent on their partner financially, and most married and non-married couples who live together have joint accounts. So, and you mentioned that you work solely on grants. Is there any financial help available for people that just don't have any money or feel like they're going to get cut off, or because beyond having a place to live, they need they need to eat and they need to feed their kids. So what can be done in that situation?
yeah. So we are funded by grants, and actually some of our grants have allowances for that. So sometimes we're able to help with rental or utility payments, which is nice.
Mm-hmm.
We recently got a bit of money from one of our grants that allows us to purchase some food bags and food resources, gift cards for survivors for gas or whatever else they might need. What am I missing, Mel? And then we have
Probably clothes,
I
like
was going to say we've got
security cameras, the phones.
Yep.
We've even used window alarms. It's really individualized, whatever the client. Not everybody has stalking, but stalking is on the rise.
yeah.
Is it?
It appears to be, yes. We
And
feel
then-
we have a lot of stalking involved.
Yeah. Well, I mean, even if someone is monitoring internet usage or financial accounts, I mean that's stalking. You're monitoring the movement of another person. So,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
and then with clothing resources, pick of the litter here locally, as well as the Salvation Army, we can give our clients vouchers so they can get clothing resources as well.
Okay. Okay.
And then, of course, whatever planning we can do ahead of time to help them secure things financially. So maybe they can start just splitting their paychecks or moving some some money aside to a different account, so they've got a little bit should they be in a position of needing to leave quickly.
Yeah, that's a really good idea. So one last question before we get to the wine pool, because I want to talk about that. What is the best way that people can help you, Phoenix Project, to get the word out? Because there are probably people that need your services that just don't know that they are available. So how can everybody help you?
I would say like our Facebook page, most likely. Go to our website, learn about us. Look at our wish list that we have. We're always, always in need. This is the first grant we got that allows gift cards, and it's only a small amount. So we usually have to appeal to the community for small amount gift cards. Like we can't keep milk and bread and, stuff like that. And like Avery had said, we place them in a hotel. So the stuff's going to look like microwave food and, stuff like that. But microwave stuff, gift cards, journals, coloring books for the kids.
Okay. So just kind of, well, with the social media algorithm, obviously getting you guys more visible, but then also just actual like in-kind donations or things that can help supplement what you are already getting from the grant.
Right. And we have a link on the website to be able to take you straight to our donate platform.
Okay. Okay. So now, can one of you tell everybody listening about the wine pool coming up? It's a charity event, obviously, to help Phoenix Project, but tell us about that.
All right. You want me to do this, Avery?
Yeah, you got it.
This is our 9th annual wine pool. We have our little flyer right here. It's our 9th annual wine pool. It's a fun event. If you don't know what a wine pool is, so there'll be a bucket of corks. I wish I still had it on my desk. I was working on them earlier. There's a bucket of corks. You purchase a ticket. They're $70 this year, and that gets you appetizer food, a complimentary glass of wine. We have Ryan Jewell for entertainment, who's an amazing singer. We will have a speaker, a survivor, speaking at the event as well. So that gets you your food, a complimentary glass of wine, and then you come and pull a wine cork out of the bucket. And if you pull, say, wine cork number 10, I'm gonna use that since we just celebrated 10 years, we will go and get you bag number 10. And that might this year have a moonshine. We have a big thing of moonshine. No, but it's typically a bottle of wine and or a wine tasting certificate from a winery. A local winery. So that's basically what our wine pool is.
And where is it located and the date?
So it is October 10th, 5 to 7:30, and it's at Regions 117, which is located in the Lake Frederick community. And tickets can be purchased online. You can pay the day of, or come here to the office and purchase them.
Okay.
Regions has some really good hors d'oeuvres. Oh, and oh my gosh, you guys, we've got a $300 Yeti cooler with $100 worth of ice coupons. We have a liquor tub. I made a family night basket. I mean, we have lots of raffles. Jean's donated this beautiful $700 amethyst necklace earring set. I think we're going to do a live auction on that. So our tickets are, you can pay $10 for the larger raffle items or get an arm's length ticket for $20 and put them in multiple items.
I'm going to have to borrow somebody with a longer wingspan than mine.
Right. Yeah, we get a tall person to do that.
Yeah.
It's typically like 20 tickets per arm length is what it really pretty much runs.
And October 10th, that is a Thursday, correct?
That is a Thursday.
Okay.
And like we always do in October, since it's Domestic Violence Awareness Month.
Yeah.
Then we'll paint the town purple October 1st. We'll be hanging a couple hundred ribbons on our main street and around the courthouse. So it'll look beautiful.
Well,
can I mention one other thing?
Yes.
Okay, real quick. We also have a healing art therapy group coming up. This is only for survivors of domestic violence, sexual assault, but you can go to our website. I'll make it quick. You can go to our website to see more information about it, but it does start October 3rd. no charge, no nothing, and we have daycare available as well.
Oh, okay. That's
We're
good. I didn't know
kind
about
of
that.
excited about that.
Yeah. And we didn't even get to the sexual assault because that's a whole separate topic. But we could probably do a whole live just on that. But I really do want you guys to come back on again because I think
We'd be happy to.
so much more we can discuss, whether it's during Domestic Violence Awareness Month or another time. Because I think like just some of these questions that I asked, I think that you could just talk for so long just on those little topics.
Right.
And then Melanie, you mentioned the circle of violence. That's something that we could probably talk
The power of control. Yeah.
Or no, I mean, like you mentioned an actual physical.
You're talking about the honeymoon phase, the explosion phase, or no?
It's either the cycle of violence or the power and control wheel.
The wheel.
The wheel. Yep.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yep.
So we could talk about that too.
And April is National Sexual Assault Awareness Month. So if you wanted to do something like that for when, maybe we can invite Aaliyah, who is our sexual assault advocate here in the office. Mm-hmm.
And you said that's April, right?
April is Sexual Assault Awareness Month.
I thought, okay, yeah, we definitely should do that because I feel bad even cutting you off now because there's so much more we can talk about. But I think the wine pool is a good place to end because it's coming up in 2 weeks and it is a way that people can, well, the proceeds are going to Phoenix Project. And I assume a lot of what is there is donated. So, so Phoenix Project will be benefiting from all of those ticket prices. So go and check it out. And how can you not go to an event with free wine and appetizers and a chance to win more wine? Get me there.
Yeah. All right. Yay.
All right. Well, before we go, is there anything else that you guys want to like leave everybody with? We've had a lot of people popping on watching this, by the way. Is there anything else you want to leave people with for now? And we'll come back obviously again.
Just that the statistics tell us that basically everyone knows at least someone who's been affected by intimate partner violence. The numbers are pretty staggering. And that I'm sure we have listeners outside of Front Royal, Warren County, throughout Virginia, and whatever county you're in, there should be a local sexual assault, domestic violence agency. All of the services throughout Virginia are free and confidential, so please don't hesitate to reach it.
And if someone,
also, just to give you an idea, I don't have the most recent report in front of me. I did use it for a 10-year thing, but the one that I do have in front of me was from July 1, 2023 to February 2024. We had already answered 1,192 hotline calls.
wow,
It's a lot.
We are required to put everything in a system that follows, everything, and that's how we retrieve our data.
Right. I mean, I imagine with receiving grants, you would have to, and similar organizations would have to keep track of that. Yeah.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And if somebody who may be watching or come across this video has a question about, where in their particular county they can go, if they're not in Front Royal or Warren, can someone reach out to you with a question? Either one of you?
Absolutely.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you everybody for watching. Thank you, Melanie and Avery, for taking the time to do this. Definitely going to have you guys on again, and I will take your suggestions as to what you think we should focus on, but we could probably do several of these because there's just so much to talk about. And I always forget to tell you, Melanie and Avery, once I end the broadcast, you and I will still be here on the screen so we can chat for like half a minute. So don't just log off, but thank you everybody so much for watching. I'm going to put the links to everything in the chat here, the wine pool, the website, and how you can help Phoenix Project. And thank you again, Melanie and Avery, for taking the time to do this today.
Thanks for having us.